Minister Fernandez, if I can turn to you with a similar question, how is Paraguay securing its long-term domestic revenues to deliver key services to the population, and how can capacity development partnerships help in that context?
Okay. First, let me thank you for the invitation to be here at this seminar. Let me start with an idea or a thought I have always, that we are in 2024 finally, and 2024 is 4 years after the pandemic, so we can start thinking and acting not about the urgent, that was the short run. Right now we can think and act about the medium term, about what is important going forward. So that is an important thing for policymakers. Now, given the high level of debt that many countries in the world had after the pandemic, it is quite important to start developing domestic revenue mobilization. That is going to be crucial. We don't have the luxury of having high or more debt at this moment, high fiscal deficit basically. So we need to do something with the revenue, or with expenditure, by the way. So if you look at several papers, including some of the IMF, we know what are the results on the economy of fiscal adjustment. We know that rising taxes or cutting expenditure, depends on how you do both, they can have a recessionary result on the economy. That is not good when economies are still recovering from the pandemic. But in any case, the fiscal adjustment is absolutely necessary. So let's see what is doing Paraguay. First, for you to have an idea, the tax regime in Paraguay is very simple. We're a country of 10, 10, 10. And why is that? It's 10% corporate tax rate, 10% personal tax rate, and 10% VAT. Yeah, many of you will say, ooh, that's very low. No, we don't see our tax regime as very low. We see our tax regime as very competitive. Now, given that, we have to be very, very smart, raising taxes or reducing tax evasion, and also even much smart or smarter when talking about good quality of spending. But let's talk about what are we doing on the revenue side. On the revenue side, until July last year, we had two different tax revenue collection agencies, totally separate, that they were not talking to each other. Customs and Internal Revenue Service, or internal revenue. So they were not talking to each other, and there is a lot of complementarity or information that you can actually share between both of them to reduce tax evasion. So the new government that started in August passed a law that actually put both tax collector agencies under one head only. So we merged Customs with the Internal Revenue Office, and right now we see the results. 25% increase year on year on tax revenue. That is huge. That is important. And now we can see clearly the theoretical results that we were expecting before. We were intended to raise $400 million more in tax revenue, and 6 months after the merge, we already accomplished that. So we are going to get even more revenues for that. So that was quite an important and crucial development for our economy, so that with a given and very competitive tax regime, we can get more revenues. So we can have more spending in the areas that we have defined as a priority. Another thing that we did is to use non-conventional tax revenue in order to promote the development of the country. You may say, what is that? Two things. We passed a carbon credit law at home for the first time. In Paraguay, 40% of the area is covered by natural forests. A large part of that is actually a national park. It's an asset, and it's sitting there. And we can be useful for the environment, but at the same time we can get some revenue mobilization using what we have in the national park. So given this law, we are now ready to actually sell carbon credits to the world, and that of course will increase revenue for the government. The second non-conventional part is what we are doing jointly with Brazil, with Itaipu, who is the Sherry hydroelectric dam we have with them. It's the largest producer of clean and renewable energy in the world. But we are not seeing Itaipu as a generator of energy only. We are seeing Itaipu as a generator of development for both economies, both in Brazil and Paraguay. So we are negotiating with Brazil right now to see how, by mobilizing the revenue that Itaipu has, can be used those funds in order to actually promote development in Paraguay and in certain states in Brazil. So those two non-conventional revenues for the country are going to be quite important to continue with the plan to put Paraguay in a better economic and social place. Yeah. That topic is quite important because you have two legs in fiscal policy, raising revenues, but then it's quite important what you do with those revenues that you have. So you need to spend it wisely then. There is a recent report from the IDB stating or finding that up to 4.4% of GDP of the region is badly spent. So there is a lot of room that you can use that room in order to improve. With the same revenue, you can improve the quality of spending in our countries. For Paraguay, the number is similar, 3.9% of GDP. So we were focusing on many things in order to improve the quality of spending. First, if you talk to your colleague in the cabinet, all of them have plenty of plans in order how to spend. I mean, if you want to find a plan how to spend, you're going to have zillion or billion of dollars. But as President Milei said, and I always repeat that, no hay plata. So there is no money for everything. And this is typically the fight I have. Of course, there has to be a decision. The decision is from the president in order to prioritize. And this is key. Priority is important. You cannot do everything in one government. You build a country over time. There is no single government that can build a country. So we have to put a brick on the wall also, or many bricks, but we're not going to finish the job, and we have to be conscious of that. So the president, and I'm lucky that he's an economist and a former Minister of Finance, he knows very well, he has given priority of the different areas. Of course, everyone gives some amount of money, and I continuously repeat to colleagues in the cabinet, giving your money, you need to prioritize, because otherwise it's impossible to do everything. And let me give you one example of what we're doing to increase efficiency. If you look at the glass, it's the same as this glass. But this glass was bought in the Ministry of Economy. This one was bought at the Ministry of Industry. And in Paraguay, this glass costs probably, I don't know, $1.2 in one ministry, and in the other is $2.30. That's impossible. But what happened then? Because they're buying the two things separately. So what we did was to pass a law, a new national procurement law, where you're going to be able to do actually Minister of Economy and the Minister of Industry working together on procurement in order to have a single price. And probably you know, because you probably go to Costco, that when you buy wholesale, it's cheaper than buy at the supermarket. So that is one of the things that we are doing with the new national procurement law that is trying to put together all the requests that we're having for similar products and doing all together at once. That is a good way to actually save a lot of money for our government.